Alright, so today we're looking at this book right here, Writing Killer cover copy, and it's by Elena Johnson. Now, normally when I do a book review, I've got this folder right here, and it's got things like the introduction. Let me zoom out a little bit, I'll make sure you guys can see. Yep. Okay. Introduction, setting, plot, characters, and such. But today, this folder is going off to the side, and I'm not using it. Because this is a nonfiction book. It's writing blurbs, really. It's called cover copy, of course, on the book. But really, it's about, well, I guess you could say writing blurbs. We call them blurbs. But a blurb by any other name is just cover copy, I suppose. Now, I got some notes here written in my Southpaw chicken scratch. And I'll be going off of that instead of the usual craft folder over there. Alright, so I will do a little bit of an intro here. It's written by Elena Johnson, as you can see from the cover. It's about 80 pages long, published on June 20th of 2019. Coincidentally, my book came out 5 years after that, on the exact same date, June 20th, but in 2024. Not that that matters. Now, she actually has an entire series of books called the Indie Inspiration Series, and this is book 2. I think there's 9 books in the series, but I think you'd have to actually, well, I know I would actually have to check online to be absolutely sure of that. But there's a whole series of books, and so if there's a specific aspect of indie writing that you need more information about, she seems like an experienced writer, seems like she knows what she's talking about. So there might be something else in this series that could help you with something other than cover copy or blurbs if you're looking for something different. Now, let's see. According to my notes here, this is, I think the first thing to really cover is that, according to her, blurb should do 3 things. It should hook the reader, it should tell the reader what the book is about, and then convince the reader to buy the book. Now, one of the things I noted here is that, just in my opinion, the book is really, well, any book, really, if I look at something like this, I look at the cover, and then I look at the blurb, and then I might look at, say, the first page. I'm not sure I should really show you, the entire book's contents. I don't want to get, sued or something. But, the first page is probably okay to show. So, what I mean by that is, everyone makes the old joke about don't judge a book by its cover. But, as we all know, if you're a writer, people do, unfortunately, judge a book by its cover. So, you have to worry about that. So, people look at the cover, and then they read the blurb. And then, the first page, the opening hook, the first chapter, certainly the first page. Especially with Amazon, where you can preview the first page in just by clicking a button saying, I want to read a sample. So a blurb is certainly one of the most important parts of selling a book. I won't dispute that at all. I think that's really what her contention is. And by contention, I mean, her belief. Not like she's arguing it. I don't think she has to. I think she's right. So there is one caveat to everything she says in the book. She says, every time you see someone who's a best-selling author or something, you don't necessarily want to look at their blurbs and just copy what they're doing because, let's say, for argument's sake, not to throw tea on anyone. I love Stephen King, by the way. He's a great writer. If you look at a Stephen King book, I don't think I'm not trying to laugh at Stephen King. What I mean is, imagine you go into a store and you pick up a book that has Stephen King's name on it, and you read the blurb on the back, and you're like, oh, gosh, I don't know. The blurb's just not written that well. I think I'll just pass. No one's going to do that. The point that she makes in this book is that a lot of established writers and authors, they're selling books based upon an established name. And until you reach that point, which, I mean, hey, if you work hard, if you get to that point, I mean, hats off, that'd be awesome. But until you reach that point, people are going to read the blurb before they buy the book, generally speaking. So the important takeaway there is, well, first of all, yeah, you have to work on your blurb, as we all do. But secondly, copying what someone else is doing is not necessarily going to lead you to success. Really, what the better thing to do is to find the principles of well-written blurbs and try to adapt that for yourself. And really, I think that's a more generalizable idea. You can apply that to anything, whether it's writing blurbs, writing in general. The ability to take what other people are doing and adapting the parts of it that will work for you, or at least the ones that you imagine will work for you, and then adapting as you go and constantly, revising your approach. That's something that doesn't just apply to blurbs. You can use that for just about anything. Okay, so let's see. I'm going on the next page of my notes here, and let's see. she goes over taglines for a while, and they're really, I think, used probably more for advertising, but I think she said that taglines can be used in your blurb. I guess it's the idea of like something short that describes your book. I gotta be real with you guys, I kind of glossed over that just a wee bit because it seemed like part of the book that might be useful to you is she does talk about things like Facebook ads, Amazon ads, other things that you can do. And she recommends, for example, like, here she has like a strategy, I think in one of the later chapters about how you can, if you want, try out different things with different marketing services. I don't think, well, I'd have to check again. I don't think she's like advocating for any particular marketing service. It's just she has like almost like a generalizable strategy. So that's something that might be useful if you're looking for that sort of thing. But here in my notes, and this is from the book, she has individual chapters dedicated to 4 different areas of a blurb. She calls them the hook, the setup, the conflict, and the consequence. And the hook is something that, like all writers are familiar with that. Every fictional novel should, hopefully, have like an opening hook, which is just the reader opens the book, the first thing they read should hook their interest. And her opinion is that you really need that in the blurb itself. You need to have that like right, in the beginning. There should be something that the reader reads right here that should hook their interest. And then beyond that, you have a setup, then you have a conflict, which is really about, the character, what's between the character and what they want. The setup is really more of explaining it's a setup. In a way, the word explains itself, but the setup can include things if you're writing, say, science fiction or fantasy. Things about the world building that the reader would have to know in order to understand the conflict and the consequence. That's something that I think it's a really important detail she notes here, which is that the setup really should include the minimum amount of information to understand the characters and the conflict. Basically, the idea of the setup should include the details needed to understand the context of the blurb and how to hook the reader. So you don't have to, in other words, don't include everything about your world. Like, as an example, there's things, in my book, there's this whole validation system where people have to validate every, I think it's 48 hours, or else like they're invalidated and then their memories are corrupted or potentially corrupted. I don't mention that in my own blurb because even though that's an important part of the plot, you don't need it to understand the premise of the book. So I guess that's like, at least my opinion, Anyway, or my opinion about her opinion. And by that I mean the opinion in this book that she wrote. To make things simplified. And the consequences, like the idea of what happens if the characters fail to reach their goal. And probably the most interesting thing in my opinion in this whole book is she has something she calls a box test. And if you're like me and you've seen the movie Seven, you're probably like, remember that scene at the end where it's like, oh, what's in the box? What's in the box? But it's not talking about that. That's not the type of box test we're talking about. By the way, simple little side note here. If you have not seen the movie Seven, it's definitely a film only suitable for adults, not children. Don't show any children Seven. But if you haven't seen it, it's a bit gory. And I don't recommend eating spaghetti while you watch it. That's all I have to say. Anyway, I'm not responsible for any nightmares. I'll just say that too. So anyway, the box test with her is the idea that you take a blurb and you can draw a line, like a box around every word. Like, I don't know, if I just take my notes here and I were to just draw like a box around, I don't know, this little note right here, I should be able to sort of write like, oh, is it part of the hook or part of the setup or part of the, what is it? The conflict or the consequence. So basically the 4 different elements, like every single line in the blurb should belong to that. So I'm going to move things around just a little bit here on y'all. Please be patient with me. Okay. So let's see. I think that's pretty much, I covered everything, and what I wanted to do here, and by wanted to do, I mean I'm about to do, is I have, hang on, sorry, it's another page in the folder here. I just forgot to take it out. I have the blurb from my book. I probably could have found a paperback copy, but I don't remember where I put them. Okay, so I'm sorry, y'all. Again, I'm trying to move things around here so you can see what I'm doing. But I think the idea here is I have these highlighters. I got them from H-E-B. They were $1 with 48 cents. And so I imagine they're kind of affordable if you can do it. And I'm just opening them up here. And so if every single sentence of a blurb should be able to fit into one of them boxes. And look at that. I tried peeling the thing off and now it's got this. Yeah. Our lives on your hands and you have butterfingers? Sorry, that's a Jurassic Park joke from the 93 version if you don't get it. Okay, so I got 4 colors here. And hang on a sec, I gotta grab my chair. Alright, so, hang on, let me make sure y'all can say. Alright, so we've got the hook. And then we got setup. And I'm really sorry because my handwriting is atrocious, I know. I'm a work in progress, just bear with me. You might have to put up with me for 5 minutes being this way, but I have to live my whole life like this. And by that I mean as a strange person. Okay, enough of that self-deprecation. For now, anyway. Okay, so I got those. There's those 4 things. Now I'm going to use this color for the hook. And gosh, I think these have been sitting out in the sun, so I really hope that they're not like dried up on me now. Okay, then there's the setup. I'm going to use that color for that one. Let's see. Watch me get these mixed up now. That would be really funny. Be really boomer. You know, I think one of these colors is some sort of pink. I'm not sure I'm comfortable enough with my masculinity to use pink. I'm just joking, of course. These actually, they seem really dry. I just opened them up. Okay, so let me read the blurb here, because this is from my novel. Feel free to roast me if you don't like it. Let's see. Earth 2163, 15 years after a nuclear war, only 12 fledgling settlements of humans remain on Earth, in cities sheltered from the radioactive ashes. Okay, so if you read the Substack article I wrote about this book and my own blurb, you know that, in my opinion, anyway, this sounds to me like setup, because it doesn't involve the characters directly, and it's not about a conflict that's relevant to the characters anyway, and it's not really about any sort of consequence if the characters fail. So, oh my gosh, is that too dark? I think y'all can still read that. I hope you can. Okay, so let's see. Next paragraph. Artificial life, the instigator of the war, was banished to the 7 colonies. Only Dr. Wasserman and his band of outcasts have managed to evade justice, striking out the settlements from their hidden fortress in the forsaken wastelands, the Sandcastle. Now that does sound a little Star Wars-y, I guess, but it didn't sound that way when I wrote it the first time, I assure you. So anyway, let's see here. There is the mention of Dr. Wasserman, the villain, so I guess you could sort of call that the conflict in a way. But it's not really tied to the protagonist yet. So I'm actually going with the notion of this is really more setup than anything else. I'll tell you what, for starters, I think that first line is definitely setup, because that's really like a world building thing. It's like, you know, sorry, I was just checking the camera, making sure y'all can see. I probably need a better setup here, to be real with y'all. Okay, so Dr. Wasserman and his band of outcasts have managed to evade justice, striking at the settlements. I don't know. I mean, I think you could look at it either way, and that like it could be part of the setup, it could be part of the conflict. But to me, because there's no protagonist, I'm going to say it's part of the setup. This is kind of subjective in a way, but I think you have to, you know, you got to call it one way or another. You have to be the decider or something. Sorry. Let's see here. Okay. Moths, a special police unit that hunts organic hazards, are all that stand between humanity and destruction. Gosh, I'm starting to wonder if my blurb writing skills need improvement here, because I think I'm still in the setup. By the way, I think the hook is supposed to come first, so I think I did this probably wrong. Now that I'm thinking on it, I'm gonna put like a little orange here, even though this is supposed to be only like, you know, one thing in the box. I think the mention of the villain there kind of ties into the conflict. I don't know if it qualifies as conflict, but it's kind of there. Let's see here. Yet, rookie officer Joan Lyon cares more about finding her long-lost mother than following orders. And her training officer, Peter Ramsey, merely wishes to run out the clock until he can retire and reunite with his family in the space colonies. See how I messed up that word there? I could never be a news broadcaster. I could never be a Tom Brokaw. But anyway, getting back to the point here, now I think we're finally getting into the conflict. Because this is about the characters, what they want, and it's at least kind of implied from the setup anyway, that there are things that are like standing in the way of them getting to what they want. So to me, that's clearly the conflict. Alright, so we're getting down to the end here. When Wasserman steals a data core from Delphi Data Core, or is it Delphi? I never could. I think I'm too Texan to know how to say it right. Anyway, when Wasserman steals a data core from Delphi Data Core, a company that can predict events before they occur, Joan and Peter aren't just fighting the enemy. They're fighting their own futures. By the way, that very last line there, I've had a couple people say that they like it. So, I don't know if that makes it good or not, but I'm going to say it's okay. And I'll just leave it at that. But in any case, so this last line here, this is definitely a consequence. So I do think I did that right. So if you're one of the people that complimented me on that line, I think that's because I got the consequence right. And because you have exquisite taste. Now let's see here, consequence. So, I mean, really looking at it, I think almost the whole thing here is really about it because, like, you know, the data core being stolen, you know, the company predicting events before they occur. In a way, I think you could maybe see, I could see the case of, like, this being, like, considered setup, and this is definitely consequence in my opinion. Now, let's see. I'm thinking on this back and forth. Events before they occur. I would say that I would extend the consequence at least to here. Sorry, I'm going backwards here because I'm a backwards person. Let's see. I actually think that this is probably even more setup. My goodness. I should have spent more time setting up the setup, and then the setup wouldn't have taken so long to set up. And I can't say that 5 times fast. Now, one thing I did look at earlier is, at the end here, I have 3 criminals, 2 detectives, 1 mystery. And one of the things that Alana does say, by the way, I don't know if it's Elena or Alana. By the way, I'm just so bad at pronouncing things. But she mentions that the hook really should be establishing like the genre and the tropes and such. And because this is like a cyberpunk noir book, I do think that this is like establishing like the tropes of like this is what the core of the book is about. And so to me that really seems like it's the hook and like it belongs probably up here. So I did it slightly backwards. Whoops. But anyway, I guess that's like the result of my box test here. And so I guess that's that for now. But I'm not going to end the video here. I think I'm going to retype this ever so slightly. And so I'll be right back. Hang on, y'all. Okay, so I'm back now. Thank you for waiting so long. And by that I mean nothing because I edited this so you didn't have to wait. Alright, so I retyped it slightly by moving the, what was at the bottom here, up top, because the hook should come first. So I'm just going to read this real quick so that you can all can see that, well, I guess it's really just to see if this is any better. So 3 criminals, 2 detectives, 1 mystery. Earth, 2163. 15 years after a nuclear war, only 12 fledgling settlements of humans remain on Earth, in cities sheltered from the radioactive ashes. Artificial life, the instigator of the war, was banished to the 7 colonies. Only Dr. Wasserman and his band of outcasts have managed to evade justice, striking at the settlements from the hidden fortress in the Forsaken Wastelands, the Sandcastle. Moths, a special police unit that hunts organic hazards, are all that stand between humanity and destruction. Yet rookie officer Joan Lyon cares more about finding her long-lost mother than following orders. And her training officer, Peter Ramsey, merely wishes to run out the clock until he can retire and reunite with his family in the space colonies. When Wasserman steals a data core from Delphi Data Core, a company that can predict events before they occur, Joan and Peter aren't just fighting the enemy, they're fighting their own futures. Well, I don't know. I almost want to ask y'all if you can leave a comment if you think that this revised version is better than the old one. But let me see, where did I put it? I still have it here. Okay. Looking back at this, the one thing that did stick out to me is that I wrote it this way, really because I do remember thinking about 1960s science fiction. And that usually it kind of does start with like a setup like this, and then it doesn't really have a hook. But maybe I just wrote something that was kind of old-fashioned like me. But anyway, this is, where did I put the book? Oh, I got it. So anyway, I guess the to long dear reader and all this is that this is a really good book. It's a short book. It's only, like 80-some pages. I think if you have any doubts about writing blurbs or cover copy, as it might be called, this is really a really good book. It doesn't take long to read because it's short. It's got a lot of information in it. I plan on keeping this around as like a reference, really, and continue to do exercises like these with the box test, as she says, and really just seeing if I can get better. And I also think it's worth picking up because it's interesting in a way to see what other people do. well, I mean, it's always interesting that in a general way. I mean, specifically to like blurbs and such, it's an interesting idea to have the information in this book, and then when you go into a bookstore, you like start reading like the blurbs, like the back cover of every single book, and you're like, I think I could do a box test on this right now. And you know, it really shows like how many people I think are like following along with these ideas, and how many are like kind of really not. But in any case, there is one last thing I thought about as I was retyping my blurb here, which was that she does advocate for having someone like a writing buddy or someone who's an avid reader whose opinion is really honest but also constructive and that you trust. And really, my opinion would be that's a great person to have for any part of writing. But she recommends bouncing ideas, as she calls it, off of is that the term that she uses? Oh, I'm sorry, that's what another writer I know uses. She says bouncing ideas. But she advocates for having someone that you can show your blurb to who will give you honest feedback on it. And that's certainly a good idea. But I don't want to spoil everything because it's a very valuable book. I really recommend picking up a copy if you're going to be writing blurbs at any point in time in the future. And there's another aspect of indie writing that you're into or you're looking for more information on, I would definitely check out her indie author series, which you can find on her website. Her name is Alana Johnson. I don't have, this is kind of amateurish of me, I don't have a link to her website, but I know that she has one. I don't remember if it's in here. I thought it was near the back, but in any case, let's see. Oh yeah, feelgoodfictionbooks.com. Okay, so that's where you can find out more information about Alana, or is it Elena? Oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. I guess it's Elena. I hope that's right. You can find more information about her and her books at that website. And I guess that's really everything. I hope that this was a useful video. And gosh, I'll just have to put all this. I'll have to find a place for this somewhere in storage. Well, anyway, I guess that's all for today. That's all, y'all. So I will see you next time.